episode of your day job. Today is a scary day. Yeah, things you don't want to hear in financial firm. This hasn't happened before, even in 2008. Yeah, it's looking bad at the moment, isn't it? I was looking at the news this morning. I decided not to bother. I was like, nope. Too depressing. And everything's going wrong. And yes, I've learned my lesson to save before making decisions. It's never actually failed me before. It's usually stopped you and penalised you, but it's never been like, and here's the story thread that ends the game. Anyway, let's crack on. So what do we do now? Better think things through carefully. I can't afford to make the wrong decision. Should I present that piece of evidence? Shows who killed the prosecutor. No. Because we already did that and it was wrong. Should you buy Horace? What's that? Your Honor, I don't have any evidence I can present at this point in time. What? You lie. Actually, yeah, because it would be, how do you know I'm lying? How do you know what evidence I have in my pocket? Unless you know I took it out of your safe. I see, so this is how we trip him up. Chief Gant. You opened my safe. I know you took what was inside. The conclusive evidence. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Wright. Why don't you show them? We found it together. Oh, I see. It's because you know the truth, don't you? You know whose fingerprints are on it. That's why you won't present it. What are you talking about, Chief Gant? Can't you figure it out? Take a good look at this picture. Alright, so he does actually know about the picture. See the victim's chest? Notice anything odd about the chest area? Looks like part of it has been cut away for some reason. You mean you had this in your safe? What? That means you, the chief of police, have been concealing evidence? This is going to be the biggest scandal in the history of the police department. And then he's like, impressive. To be honest, I didn't think you had the gall, Righto. Well, I can't just let you pin me up as the murderer. I'll tell you what really happened. What, you mean you admit to it? I was the first person to arrive at the crime scene that day. It then occurred to me that I could use the situation to control Lana, so now he is admitting to it. A game just released last year and it has a really good story, a line and some 8-bit classic music. Sounds good. So you really were manipulating her. I knew Lana. If I made it look like the blame lay with her sister, then what she saw, when she saw the scene, she would ask me for my aid. So you assisted Ms. Skye. I told her to arrange all the evidence. I had her plant the knife tip in the victim's body and move the body across the room, and I ended up using that evidence to get Joe Dark convicted. He is the Prince of Lies. Exactly. When I tampered with the crime scene, I hid 2 pieces of evidence. This was before Lana arrived to the scene, mind you. 2 pieces of evidence. You mean those items in your safe. But why? For insurance, of course. Insurance? I was sure my plan would work, but it's always best to be prepared for the worst. I wasn't about to let anyone blame me for a murder that girl committed. You mean you were calculating that far ahead while you were forging evidence? What do you take me for, a fool? I didn't make the police chief by dumb luck. See this jar fragment? I hid the most legible part of Emma's name. I didn't expect Lana to go and wipe off the blood on all the pieces. I did wonder if he thought she would do that or not. You'd recommend it since it's single player, has a good puzzle and good ratings on the scene? I'll have a look at it later. But if you fabricated all the evidence, what's to say you didn't fabricate the message on the jar too? Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. I mean, sorry. Some people just don't know when to quit, do they? That's why I kept one more item for insurance. You mean the piece of cloth. Come on, Righto. Cough it up already. I know you have it. What are you waiting for, Mr. Wright? So you admit to it then, Chief Gant, that you were hiding the cloth you cut off the victim's vest in your safe. Yes, I admit it. I didn't want to have to do all that being chief and all, but it's a lot better than being portrayed as a murderer. Well, Mr. Wright, what do you have to say for yourself? Just a moment ago you said you didn't have any evidence you could present. Foolish move, Righto. You should have shown it then before it was too late. It's been a long battle, but the moment of truth has finally arrived. As long as I don't mess up here, victory is mine. Oh god. Yes, okay, we'll save it now. So, if we show it now though, the thing is, I don't want to show it because he wants us to, and if he wants us to, it means it still helps him. We've got to think like him. We've got to think like, you know, he's going to benefit somehow from us showing the evidence. If that's the case, we shouldn't give him what he wants. He did say that he only ever serves himself. Do you think show now? Thing is, last time I showed now, because he wanted us to, it screwed us over. He's still got a card up his sleeve, surely. But he has kind of called our bluff. We should just let it play out. Okay, he'll show it. Your Honor, I do have evidence to present now. Alright then, let's see this conclusive evidence. The evidence that shows who actually murdered Prosecutor Marshall. Is it the cloth though, or is it something else now that he's said that? Question is, are we supposed to show the cloth or something else? Well, we know the night was definitely the method now. That's... yeah. That's the handprint someone left behind an oil stain on the fabric. Why would she have oily hands? Why is there no blood on that cloth? Interesting. Think about it scientifically, huh? More likely explanation is the person slipped and fell on a freshly waxed floor, getting wax all over their hand. That would account for the amount of oil, I guess. Let's see what's scientific about that, though. It happens, you know. I always slip on the floors at school after they're waxed. Yeah, because there is blood on the front. But there's no blood on the cloth, which means it was cut out before that. Wax isn't oil. Yeah. I was wondering, I'm like, really? Oily handprints come from wax on the floor, huh? Interesting. But the whole point of wax on a floor was to clean it, not make it dirty enough that you leave handprints on them. So if that cloth was cut from his... yeah, because the shirt wouldn't have blood on it. That blood has come from his mouth. I mean, I don't know though. Maybe it pierced him all the way through as well, so... yeah. The question is, which one of these do we present? Yeah, no blood on the cloth. It's okay, Erica, we're figuring it out, don't worry. It means that it was cut off beforehand. And he probably just pressed her handprint to it. This was cut off before she was shoved. Before she shoved him. What's the other picture? This one. That one is when... this was taken earlier in the day, before the murder, when the prosecutor received that trophy. So yeah, clearly this was cut off before this guy was stabbed against this, which means he was probably also knocked out. He might have already been unconscious, and then the chief came and cut the cloth, and then skewered him on that. But like I say, I just don't know which one of these two to present. They're obviously the important one, but I don't want to present the wrong thing. Yeah, do please turn it down just a little bit. I know you want me to get it right, but let me work it out myself as well sometimes. Let's just try this. Let's see what happens. Let me verify this once more. On the day of the crime, you personally cut out this piece of the victim's vest. You see, I know the game's going to tell me as well as it goes along, but I do want to kind of know before. I like to look smart. But that's why I sit here sometimes scratching my chin being like, you know, like, how is this related? I don't want the game necessarily to just tell me, because I figure this is obviously the right thing, but I don't know why, and then I go blip, throwing it into the screen. Ah yes, at last, you finally brought it out into the open. There's a handprint on this piece of cloth. Your Honour, the prosecution requests that it be immediately sent to the lab for analysis. This handprint on the leather, it must have been a strong impact for it to be left so clearly. You mean, it could not have been forged, it must be authentic, conclusive evidence. You have driving class tomorrow. Are you taking driving lessons? Awesome, well, good luck. Ho ho ho. You're as slow on the uptake as ever worthy. What? Think about it. Wright had all this time to present this evidence. Yet he was reluctant to do so. Why would that be? You mean you already know? You know whose fingerprints are on that? Mr. Wright, do you really know? Whoever the fingerprints belong to must be the real murderer. Whose fingerprints are they? Very well, I will tell you. It should be okay now. Everything's proceeding as predicted. The person to whom these fingerprints belong to is... I mean, we can't obviously lie, because if it gets tested... That's okay, Erica, I know you're excited. That's it. It's perfectly fine to be excited. Just turn it down a little bit sometimes. If I'm sat here scratching my chin, I don't need tons of hints. I'll ask for hints when I need them. Ema? Ema Sky? What? They're mine? I'm sorry, Ema, but why? Why didn't you tell me? Ho 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 ho! You're really something, Righto. You knew this girl did it all along, and you still tried to pin the murder on me. So it's true, tragic but true. This girl really did shove Prosecutor Marshall to his death. How could you, you monster! Ms. Sky, you knew whose fingerprints those were all along, yet you acted like she really didn't? Ms. Sky, it's not over yet. What? I'm confused. I thought the gamer were just laying down while playing games. You thought that's what backseat gaming meant? Oh, right. I suppose it doesn't always translate in some languages. But yeah, it's like backseat driving. I mean, funnily enough, with you mentioning driving lessons, what they mean by backseat gaming is if you've got a passenger in a car and they're constantly telling you what to do while you're driving, but you already know how to drive. You know? They're like, watch out, there's a red light there, look out for that, look out for this, there's somebody crossing the road, don't hit them. That's called backseat driving. And so if you take that as an analogy, it's telling other people what to do because you know things, and it's like, you know, don't, because they might know as well. You're just butting in before they have a chance. Right, I said this trial isn't over yet. Ha, but I'm afraid it's over, boy. Not only this trial, but your career too. Yeah, that's just what it means. And like I say, it's not a huge deal as long as you're respectful to the fact that, you know, you don't always need to try to tell me what to do. So... You purposely concealed this conclusive evidence. That, my friend, is a serious offence. I'm looking forward to pressing charges after the defendant is convicted. I'll have your badge now, boy. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Are you really going to tell us how it feels? How it feels to be the one who single-handedly turned a poor girl into a murderer? Like, seriously though, are you forgetting the fact that you concealed this first, and that doesn't make you the chief of fuck all in my book? There's just one little thing I have to clear up. Oh, and what's that? Who really killed Prosecutor Neil Marshall? What? Chief Gant, you're absolutely right. This piece of cloth proves who the real murderer is. Who killed Neil Marshall, you ask? It was Ema Skye, wasn't it? The thing is, I bet the size... Because I noticed earlier when we presented this, I think it was during the failed presentation, or maybe it was this one, I can't remember now, but... Edgeworth said it's a big handprint. A big one. So, does Ema's hand match up to this? Her prints might, but does the size of her hand match up to it? Bear in mind this was 2 years earlier. Not that her hands will have grown particularly large in 2 years, but still, you know what I mean? It would have been a little smaller. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, this piece of cloth contains a critical contradiction. Your Wi-Fi's been slow? Ooh. What? A contradiction? What is this fool babbling about? Because I notice as well, he always seems to wear gloves. Fact. Probably wearing them in this picture as well, isn't he? Yep, he is. He seems to always wear gloves. So he wouldn't have left any prints, but he could have then pressed her hand to it while she was unconscious to get the prints on them and put them in the right place. What is this fool babbling about? I'm talking about a contradiction, one that proves who the real killer is. Mr. Wright, this piece of cloth, what could possibly contradict it? What could it possibly contradict? Chief Gant, your tyrannical reign ends here. Behold, the piece of evidence that contradicts this cloth. It's going to be the blood stain then, isn't it? Now, this is when we play the picture. Because there's no blood on the picture, and there's nothing else we can show that contradicts this, so... What exactly is this supposed to be? This is the picture Ms. Skye took. Take a good look at it. See where the piece of his vest was cut out? Yes. His shirt is showing underneath. It's hard to make out with all the blood on his vest though. Exactly my point. His chest is soaked with blood. That's only natural. His lungs no doubt were punctured. Blood poured out of his mouth. Oh, but that piece of cloth has no blood on it. Wait, there's no blood on it. Urgh! Since Ema Skye's fingerprints are on this cloth, there's no doubt she shoved the prosecutor aside. However, Mr. Marshall was not impaled on the sword at that time. No, this is nonsense. Now then, Chief Gant, let me ask you something. Prosecutor Marshall was not impaled when he was shoved aside. He most likely hit his head on the ground and was knocked out. If so, then tell me, who could it have been? Who could have arrived at the scene before Ms. Lana Skye? Picked up the unconscious prosecutor and impaled him on the armor's sword. Then, to make it look like Ema was responsible for the prosecutor's death, said person proceeded to write her name on the jar with the victim's blood. I did say that earlier, that he might not have even written this. Especially if he was dead hanging off of the sword on that night. A jar that they had broken on purpose to leave behind the clue and make Lana believe her sister did it. Remember what you admitted only moments ago? That you personally cut out this bloodless piece of the victim's vest? Ironic, isn't it? Though the very act of creating insurance, you proved that you were the actual murderer. It's finally all over. Objection! Oh, that was close, Wright. Oh, you almost had me. Sorry, but you'll have to do better than that. I refute your allegation. What do you mean, refute his allegation? You see, that piece of cloth is illegal evidence. Order? Order. What is this nonsense? Illegal evidence cannot be used to convict a suspect. Remember, Uji? Earlier, old Raito here concealed that piece of cloth. So then what's your excuse, Raito? You do have some conclusive evidence, don't you? Your Honor, I don't have any evidence I can present at this point in time. He didn't say at all. Well, that's true. The defense did refuse to present evidence. At that moment, that piece of cloth ceased to be legal evidence. That's not fair. Oh. Do you actually think you could best me in court? It looks like the last laugh's on you, son. I'm afraid Mr. Gant's claim is legally correct. Well, Mr. Edgeworth? True, illegal evidence cannot be used to convict a person, assuming, of course, that the evidence is indeed illegal. Well, Mr. Wright? Seems, at last, time for me to reveal my plan has finally arrived. Mr. Wright, do you admit to it, that you purposefully and illegally concealed this piece of cloth? Save! Okay. If we say we did, then it makes it illegal. There can't be any clever play to get out of that. But we didn't conceal it, we just held it for the opportune moment, maybe? I admit I refused to present it at one point. Ah, so the evidence is illegal. No, it isn't, Mr. Gant. Huh? It's not that I didn't present evidence then, it's that I couldn't. Well, that's it, yeah, we revealed, Gant was the one who revealed we had it, and thus proved that he knew it was in his safe all along. And that was part of the play. We can say we couldn't present it at the time because it wasn't relevant to the truth. And not presenting it caused him to expose the truth, and now we can present it. What do you mean you couldn't? There are certain procedures involved when presenting evidence. No, Uji, don't listen to his lies. He's nothing but a coward. We can't really believe... Shut up. There's only one issue left to be resolved in this trial. Is this evidence legal or not? Very well, let us settle this once and for all. Rock, paper, scissors. I mean, earlier you refused to present evidence. If you can prove your conduct was not in violation of the law, do so now. Well, this is going to be in the rules, isn't it? It's the only thing we have. Unregistered evidence presented must be relevant to the case on trial. But it's going to be that one. If a person on stand talks about evidence that's not evidence brought up yet, then it can be used in court. Exactly. It wasn't relevant until he brought it up. And it's like, oh, you mean this? Oh, I guess it is relevant. I didn't know this was relevant. So it's all wordplay. This is my proof, Your Honour. Evidence law. What's this? I've done my homework too, Chief. Indeed, Imaskai's fingerprints were on this piece of cloth. However, at that point in time, this was merely a piece of cloth, nothing more. What? You see, it's written right here in this book. The second rule of evidence law. Rule number 1, no evidence shall be shown without the approval of the police department. I found this piece of evidence myself inside your safe. It goes without saying I did not have approval from the police department. Rule number 2, unregistered evidence presented must be relevant to the case on trial. And here is the crux of the matter. You see, at the time, it was impossible for me to prove the relevance between the cloth and the SL9 incident. What? What kind of nonsense is this? You want relevancy? Just take a look at this picture and... Sorry, but can you recall when was that picture presented? That was shown only a few moments ago. No! He's right. At the beginning of today's trial, that piece of cloth was still meaningless. The person who gave it its value as evidence was you, Damon Gant. You yourself confessed to a certain truth. Let me verify this once more. On the day of the crime, you personally cut this out of a piece out of the victim's vest. Oh, yes. No! It was then that you approved the cloth as conclusive evidence. Yes, you, the Chief of Police, personally approved this cloth. The only person who could have cut this from the victim's vest is the one who stood before Prosecutor Marshall in his final moments. In other words, the real murderer. And there's only one person who that could be. Damon Gant. The killer was you.